everybody. Welcome back to Autism Confidential, the podcast from the National Council on Severe Autism. And today, I am your host, Jill Escher. Big announcement. One of my co-hosts, Amy Letts, who is Vice President of Autism, NCSA, earned her PhD last month, and she is now Dr. Amy Letts. She will be back now that she's done, with her dissertation and her dissertation defense. Dr. Letts will be back on the podcast with some new guests pretty soon. And in terms of other announcements, I do want to say we do plan to come out pretty much every Monday over the summer. There are some vacationing people, including myself, so we might not stick perfectly to the schedule. You'll just have to forgive us. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's very special guests, and I will do it with a musical accompaniment. Nice. Hello, Tom McKean.
Hello, Jill Escher.
Tom McKean is a very special person in the autism world. He was diagnosed with autism back in the 70s. We're the same age. We're in our mid to late 50s, I guess I should say. But he was diagnosed back in the day when autism was quite rare. And he was among the very early self-advocates advocating for autism, first through the Autism Society of America. But, Tom has undertaken many other things apart from that, which you'll hear about. So Tom, welcome. I want to hear first about your childhood. And what was it about you, and around what year that concerned your parents then that led them to seek a diagnosis for you?
The way my mother tells it, at least the story she told me was something happened. I don't remember what it was. Something happened at 6 months old, and I have no memory of that, obviously, but she said that something happened at 6 months old and it made her suspect autism. Even back then, she was interested in childhood education, and she was reading the books, and she was reading what was known about it at the time, and she kept taking me one doctor to the next, and they all said no, and she said yes, and then finally, when I was 14, not far from here at the OSU hospitals, I was diagnosed.
Being
Ohio State University, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The OSU hospitals, they diagnosed me.
And what was it about you when you were 14 that led them to give you that diagnosis?
I just heard you on an interview a little bit ago talking about co-occurring conditions that go along with autism. I don't know if you mentioned depression specifically. You may have. I know you mentioned the anxiety. It was that kind of thing. The things that just naturally happen with autism, the depression and the anxiety and the kind of being a little down and not quite right, if you know what I'm saying.
But what autism traits did you have? Because depression is not in the diagnostic criteria.
No, it's not. And I'm not sure exactly. I mean, you would think I would know, wouldn't you? I guess I wasn't ready for that question.
But you were clearly.
I don't really like thinking back on that time. I mean, I wrote the book, and I don't really like thinking back on that time because it's really kind of a dark time for me. And it wasn't.
Your teens.
I was 13, 14 years old, and even back then in the late 70s and the early 80s, they were putting people in institutions, and that's what happened to me. And that was kind of dark too.
How did you end up in an institution? I mean,
the doctor recommended it, and mom and dad said, well, okay, go ahead.
Why would the doctor recommend it? Did he think it would be therapeutic?
I guess they felt it would be the best place for me at the time.
So you were a young teenager
Yeah.
You were troubled in some way,
Yeah.
right? Your communication is clearly not terribly impaired. You're
It
very high
might have been
functioning.
back then.
It may have been back then. Okay.
Yes.
Were you failing in school? Was that part of it?
I think I was failing in school, but I think it was because I was bored.
Hmm. So what was this institution where you were put in your teens?
It was I would assume, a stereotypical psychiatric facility. It's like many that I have toured since then. And it was this place where you kind of lived and stayed and received therapy and tried to get your life together. But in order for that to happen, you had to be cooperative. I'm not really sure that I was back then. I was later. After I left, I went back to see some psychologists, and I was more cooperative with them then.
This was a
But during that time, I
psychiatric.
really wasn't. I was maybe a little bit of a rebellious teenager.
Okay, well, you're not the only one. And
No,
but
it's nice to know that part of me is normal.
well, so you ended up in this psychiatric institution in Ohio, which
Right.
it seems to me was a miserable experience for you.
It would be a miserable experience for anyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about it. It was just
Well,
that.
they didn't know what autism really was, because Temple and Thomas hadn't come along at
And
that
when you
point
say
yet.
Temple and Thomas, you mean
You know,
Temple Grandin
and Thomas McKean, yes,
and
and
Thomas McKean.
Sean Barron and Donna Williams, the original four of us who kind of uh, told everybody what autism is and kind of increased awareness, at least to some extent. And
Mhm.
they didn't know what I don't know that they were able to help me because of that. And I didn't know what it was either. I do remember my mother telling me shortly before she died that that they didn't even tell her. They didn't tell my parents. They said, your son is developmentally delayed, and left it at that. I think they were a little afraid of the A word.
Oh, well, maybe that was because of the predominance of the refrigerator mother theory of the time.
That's possible,
The mother blaming.
although the refrigerator mother theory kind of started to fade out when Rimland published that book in 65.
Infantile autism.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. You know
Oh,
your
I read it.
history.
It was a very, very good book. It was really tour de
And
force on his part.
I'm not saying it was completely gone by then. I don't think it's completely gone now, because I'm still hearing about it even in
Yeah.
2022. But it definitely diminished by that time.
So, okay, how old were you when you exited the institution?
17.
Okay, so you were there. You get out. Did you go back to high school? What did you do at that point?
From June of 80 to August of 83, if I remember right. So it's a little over 3 years.
Okay, and then did you go back to live with your parents, or what happened?
I did. I watched a lot of Batman reruns, and eventually Dad, my father, who's working at the big Nationwide building in downtown Columbus, some of your listeners may be aware of that, got me a job in the Medicare division. I processed Medicare claims for Ohio and West Virginia for a
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
From
So,
86 to 89, I did that. And then there was this goal that they wanted you to meet, production, they called it. You had to process 200 claims an hour. And you can do that. It is possible, but you make a lot of mistakes. And I always felt it was more,
200
yeah,
claims an hour.
yeah. And I always felt it was more important to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really reached the 200 claims an hour, although I did have the highest accuracy rating of anybody there. But they were more interested in the speed. And so one day everybody got a raise except me, because I was accurate but not fast. And I left and met this nice girl, Melanie. We were engaged, and then we were not. And so I went back to the institution and asked them for some records, and that's how I found it.
Ask them for records about what?
Regarding the diagnosis, because nobody
Oh,
told me.
oh, okay, okay. Well, I want to say something. I've been around the autism world quite a long time, and I've met a lot of adults with autism who are now in their, I would say, 40s, 50s, even in their 60s. There aren't many of them. You're a very vanishingly small population. But I meet a lot of very, very high functioning adults who were diagnosed, back in the day when we were told the only people who were diagnosed with autism, were the most severe cases. And I want to say emphatically, that's not correct. I mean, Temple Grandin was not a very severe case. You're not a very severe case. Jonathan Mitchell's not a very severe case. I could think of, 4 or 5 people I've met here in the Bay Area who are not very severe cases, who were diagnosed in the 70s. So I think it's a little, it concerns me that, we're sort of saying, well, high functioning autism was missed. Like, oh no, not really. I'm not sure if we actually have proof of that, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just making a side observation. Now, how did you get involved in autism advocacy? Because here you were, this guy who found out he had autism. Like, how old were you? You were,
Right. Well,
in your
I've
20s,
mentioned this
maybe?
on every I think just about every podcast I've done. They've asked me that, and I've told them the same story. I was looking for answers, and I had taken I think I had taken some mental health courses by then, and I remember reading about it, and I remembered that there was. The two things that I remembered was that it was associated with mild to moderate mental retardation. That's what they called it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was thought back then, you may remember if you know your history, that back then it was thought that 70% of people with autism had some form of mild or moderate mental retardation. And I also read that it was pretty hopeless. Neither of those things were good for me. So I wanted to know more about it. And so I started calling around looking for information. And I found a local chapter meeting of the ASA in
And
Columbus.
this
And I
was
started
long before the
attending.
internet.
Yeah,
Tom could
long
not
before
just
the,
log onto the internet.
yeah, this was back when we had phones that you had to stay in one place because they had cords on them, and you had to like stay
Right.
there and have these great big things on your ears that you talked into. And I went to this meeting, and I remember, this is the story that I tell on the podcast, and this is true. I was on my way there, and I remember having the thought on my way there, what am I going to do? And this is in the book too. What am I going to do if they want us to introduce ourselves? If I am not a parent but a person with autism, I tell them that, am I even going to be welcome there? Are they even going to want to have anything to do with me? And I was hoping that it wouldn't come up. And I went in there and I sat down, and this lady says, I see some new faces today. Why don't we go around and introduce ourselves? And they started going around the table, and hello, my name is such and such, and I have a so-and-so year old son, daughter, grandchild, niece, nephew, whatever, with autism. And it came to be my turn, and I'm not even sure that I knew what I said until after I said it. I said, hello, my name is Thomas, and I am the child with autism. And there was this dead silence in the room, way off to the at the end of the table, this quiet little whisper, oh my God, it's a miracle. And whatever they had planned for that meeting was forgotten because it was all about me, which I had no idea was coming.
Hmm.
I
Well, these
mean, they
were
were just
parents, presumably, of children who were more challenged than.
right. And they wanted to get inside their heads, and they thought I was the way to do that.
Mhm. Oh, You are the guide to the other world.
Right. Well, that day I was, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was just the beginning.
Yeah.
And
This
I
was like
started
Autism Society of Ohio or
Autism Society of Central Ohio,
Central Ohio. Yeah.
which is
Okay.
a chapter of the Autism Society of Ohio, which I'm currently serving on the board.
And
So
this
I'm
was,
on,
oh, that's cool. So this was
yeah.
back in the days. I was president of Autism Society San Francisco Bay Area for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were the president when I was watching that thingy that you
Oh
did.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm still on the board. I still do a
Yeah,
ton
you're
for
like
them.
immediate past president, I think, if I remember right.
Not quite immediate anymore, but still on the board. But yeah, this was way back when autism was quite rare, Tom.
Right.
When
And
you first visited that meeting.
right. And so I started attending these meetings on a monthly basis. And after the meeting was over one day, this guy came up to me and said, hey, why don't you put your name on the ballot for the national board of ASA?
Mm.
We need people like you. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Why? I said, well, that's for special people. That's not for me. He says, oh, yes, yes, you are exactly who we need.
Oh, interesting.
And so he wouldn't stop bugging me about this. He just
Mm.
kept, hope he's not watching this. He might take offense at me saying that, but he did. He just kept going on. He was determined that I was going to be on the board, and I was determined he was wrong. And finally, I said, you know what? I'll prove it. I'll do everything. I won't get any votes, and then you'll see. And I got the paperwork in just under the wire, and I got more votes than anyone else did that year, and that was 92.
Mm.
And
And
well, he showed me, didn't he? And the first board meeting that I had was in Albuquerque. It was at the national conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Julie Donnelly approached me and said, hey, would you like to present? Would you like to be on my panel of people with autism? No, no. But I felt an obligation to do that because it was an ASA event and I was on the board. And because of that, I felt an obligation to do it anyway. So I said, I'll do it if I can go last. If all your other panelists can go first and I can go last, I'll do it. And this was the only strategy I could think of because, I had played the coffee houses, you heard me playing the guitar earlier. So I was used to the stage, but, what if I said something wrong? What if I said something that wasn't true? What if I said something that was in some way offensive? I was a little worried about that because I didn't really know the autism community. And I figured if everyone else went first, I could just get up there and build on what they said. And I did. I built on what they said and I said some things on my own. And after that talk was over, there were four of us presenting. I think I still have the cassette from that. And after the talk was over, something happened to me that didn't happen to the other three presenters. People came up to me and wanted me to present where they were, and they offered me money for it. And I'm thinking, what have I gotten myself into here? But I
so what did
started
you
doing
want
it.
to what did you want to accomplish though? I
I
mean, here you were, this guy, again, nothing
I want
against you,
that. I
Thomas,
did
but
want to
very high
accomplish.
functioning,
Yeah.
right? Compared to, the people who you were, your colleagues, right? What did you want to accomplish?
Well, there were a couple of things I wanted to accomplish. One of the things was, what I said earlier, I wanted to learn more about what this is. And I also wanted to see if I could do something to prevent others from going through what I did when I was younger, including the institution. And, my goal was to keep one kid from going through that. And I kept, I don't know how many since then. And I'm thankful for that opportunity. But, I was trying to improve quality of life and see if I could prevent other kids from going through the trauma that I did growing up.
Mm, okay. So you kind of became known as an advocate. You actually have written books about your
Yeah.
life and your experience,
Uh,
right?
from the
Let's
light.
see. It's hard to see. You're gonna have to tell
Yeah,
people.
There, can you see that? Soon come the
There.
light. This was
Yeah.
the first book published by Future Horizons back in the day.
And that helped. I mean, at a time when very people knew what autism was, at least your version of autism, right, got out there.
Right.
Um, and now, I mean, even though you are, I would say, a little bit on the retired side, you're somebody who plays who plays guitar and goes to the senior center. Um, you know, you're still an advocate, right? Here you are, decades
I
later.
do get out there and present on occasion still, yes. And
Yeah. And
I'll
you're
talk to
online. I mean,
parents.
not just presenting, but you have developed an internet presence and a following, right?
That
This is
was
how I
not
met you,
that was
right?
not really something I wanted to do. I was content being retired and letting the next generation of advocates just do their thing. I wanted to watch them accomplish more than the four of us originals did because I thought they would. I still think they will, but now we've got these other people.
Right. We'll talk about the other people because I mean, I
Right.
think people, what I've noticed online is people are very drawn to you because you have a message as a self advocate that's very understanding and very kind, caring, and rational. And you don't put up with a lot of the animosity, right? That we parents, right,
Well,
experience,
you know, I think the reason for that is because I've been out there. I've seen the reality of what autism is on an international scale.
So what do you
It
mean by
wasn't
that?
just the ASA board. It wasn't just the conferences. I also did some direct services. I did consulting with parents and school systems, and I've worked with, you know, those barely affected to the most severe to everyone in between. So I've got this kind of well-rounded view of what autism is from doing that. And those other people, we'll call them that for now, other people, I don't think they have that. You know, they're just kind of sitting at home and calling themselves advocates. And I'd be okay
Mhm.
with that if they were actually advocating. But you know, I think that experience, 30 years of it, has
Mhm.
has uh, kind of shown me what it's like, not just to be the person with autism, but to be the parent, because the parents have been so open with me, and they've like shared and told me these, you know, intimate things that they wouldn't tell other people,
Mhm.
you know, trying to get help for their kids. And that's really kind of, I think, shown me who they are.
Yeah.
And so yes, I understand, I get it.
Mhm.
And I think that, you know what it is. That's why, if they're drawn to me, Jill, that's why, because I get it.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's not something we find among, self advocates with autism, who, make strong proclamations about their, superiority in all
Right.
matters with well-being, as you have mentioned, extremely naive about the realities of autism on the severe side. So I think what's interesting about you, Tom, and really the reason that I'm talking to you today. First of all, we developed a friendship over guitar. Let's make that plain. And we also, you know how much I've appreciated your standing up for parents who have been bullied online. And I think that's what makes you really unique and really
Yeah,
special,
that's
among other
gotten me
things.
bullied online.
And you
Standing up for
you
the
too
right,
bully. You're also
right.
bullied
Standing
online.
up for the parents who have been bullied online has gotten me bullied online.
Oh, let's notice, Tom's actually in a wheelchair. We should mention this.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and as he said, that's not due to his autism. Autism doesn't cause people to land in wheelchairs, but he
No, it
has
doesn't.
a neurological disorder. Kind of,
Yeah, that all that travel and all that work caught up to me.
yeah, yeah. You were ambulatory back then.
I was on my
Yeah,
feet.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so let's talk about this online thing, this phenomenon, right, of what shall I say, some cruelty and some bizarre and I would say irrational crusading by a very vocal minority of people, with high functioning autism or who are self-diagnosed. I want to talk about it because I would say most parents have been on the receiving end of this. And we could talk about the kind of things. It's usually they have a little quiver of arrows, right? These people have a certain quiver and certain arrows that they throw at us. And they're things like
internal ableism.
Internal ableism. Yeah, let's talk about some of these. What do you make of internal ableism? And what do they even mean by it?
I'm not sure what that means. I don't consider myself to be ableist. I'd like to think my record shows I'm not.
Well, how do you even define ableist? I mean, come on, what does it even mean?
I think ableism may be in the eye of the beholder, because I've noticed there's a lot of people online using it in a way that I wouldn't. And it's not that it doesn't exist. I think it does. I just not sure it exists to the extent that they're saying that it does. And I'm not sure that the people who they are calling ableist really are ableist.
I'm going to be honest. I don't even know what the term means. That term has no meaning to me. It has no meaning to me. I mean this.
Well, it doesn't.
Does it mean discriminating?
It's been used so many times in so many of the wrong ways that it's gotten to the point now where if I see the word, I just kind of roll my eyes and gloss over it and go on. It is a real thing, it's
what can you define it for me? What is it
I don't know that I can, because everyone seems to think it's something different. The discrimination may not be so far off. I'm not sure it's so much discrimination as it is
presumptions
or lack thereof.
I don't know. Well,
like not really believing in someone, or not believing in their
not
capabilities.
Presuming competence.
Right. Well, that's sort of the way I see it. I could be wrong about that. You might get a bunch of emails now saying that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's I know that it is something negative, and I know that it's something that we don't want, and I know that there have been times where people with autism have been underestimated, and that they've kind of risen above and shown us that they are more than we think they are. That's happened, and I love it when that happens. I love seeing people with autism succeed.
Well, that's ableist of you, Thomas, because now you are preferring ability over disability. You're preferring success over failure.
I am preferring success, yeah.
But I would say that's ableist, because in my view, ableism encompasses the notion that failure and success, disability and ability are all on the same plane. So, the same moral plane. So listen, we don't have to talk about internalized ableism. Some of their other arrows, in their quiver are that, we parents can't understand autism because we don't have autism. Right?
Ableism is discrimination and social prejudice against people with disabilities and or people who are perceived to be disabled. So yes, I guess ableism, to answer your question, goes back to your original thought that it would be discrimination. Okay. I just cheated and looked it up.
Okay. I could talk for a long time about why I think that makes no sense, but let's move on. But what do you think about this idea that, like, the quote unquote hashtag actually autistic are always making against parents like me? That, here I have 2 kids with autism and I can't possibly understand them better than they can, because they have the same label as my kids.
And therein
Never
lies,
met my kids, but presumably they know more than I
and
than
that's
I
the
do.
problem. You see, that's the problem, is this thing that we're calling autism is so wide and encompassing,
Mhm.
and everyone is so different, and you've got like these different levels and these different abilities and these different problems and different deficits and different everything, that you put me next to Sophie and there's going to be a difference there, right?
Oh,
And
massive, not even on the
right,
same, in the same
right.
universe
And
of disability.
it used to be that they were proud to be Asperger's. They would thump their chest and say, look at me, I'm an Aspie.
Hmm.
And that was okay with me because I came along before there was an Asperger's syndrome, so I didn't feel affiliated with them in any way. And because they were Aspie and not autism, they weren't affiliated with us. But then when this thing came out
Mm.
about the possibility of Asperger being a Nazi, they changed it to autism. And then when they realized that they were autistic, they kind of felt that they knew everything and were
Right.
able
Well,
to
also
speak
the
for all of us.
DSM got rid of,
It
Asperger's and
did, it
called it
did. And that was
basically.
before the whole Nazi thing came, contrary to what a lot of people think.
Correct. Yeah, you're correct. But yeah, I mean, I think this has been one of the great debacles of autism, right? That, people who are cognitively, um, you know, have strong cognitive abilities, strong communication abilities, strong adaptive abilities, but have kind of social quirks are in the same category, the same
Right,
diagnostic category as my kids who are nonverbal and
right.
function like at a preschool level.
And
Like
that's a problem.
it's absurd. It's not just a problem. I mean, it's violently absurd. It's
And
radically absurd,
they try
mammothly
to
absurd.
they try to deal with that with the levels, and it's not sufficient. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and the levels are helpful, but not, I would agree, it's not sufficient because there's just not enough overlap in terms of, their clinical manifestations to warrant throwing them all under the same label. I mean, they should have retained Asperger's. Maybe they could have called it something else. I had a friend who was on the DSM committee. He's passed away. And so he was one of the people who was very opposed to, what ended up happening with the DSM. He was a psychiatrist, a very knowledgeable fellow. And he said, in the DSM-5, they created something called social communication disorder, right? There's a new diagnosis in the DSM-5 established in 2013. And that was supposed to be, in his view, you know, kind of the new Asperger's. Well, guess
Social
what? Nope.
communication disorder.
Mm-hmm. And no one uses it. It might as well not even be in the DSM.
That would
No one
be for
uses it.
the ones that, like you were saying a little bit ago, are a little quirky.
Yeah, the quirky people, like, these self-advocates who can spend all day tweeting, with who are entirely in command of the English language, entirely in command of abstract thinking, right? So unlike our kids who lack that.
Right. The
But,
ones who will not need the 24/7 care for the rest of their
not
lives.
remotely. It's an ident. They're maybe they do have some you know frailties and they do have some impairments on the mild side, but they're not autism. But anyway, my point is that a lot of people who he would never have guessed would have stayed in the autism category because no one used social communication disorder. So you have now this insane level of heterogeneity in the DSM-5, and we obviously at NCSA we think it's a problem. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I
What
agree
should
with
we
you.
do? What do you think?
I agree with you that it's a problem. I don't, I, the bullies, if nothing else, have proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's a problem. I, I am with the NCSA on adding profound autism to the DSM. There may be some people out there saying Thomas is a traitor for saying that. I understand their concern about insurance. I totally get it. It is a possibility that it will affect insurance in a negative way. I understand that, but I think I think it needs to be something separate and something recognized.
Yeah, and we actually haven't said what terms, we haven't made it stand on like what terms to use. I think our only position is, we need to do more subtyping, although we haven't specified how. We're working on that.
And
Um,
not just with the lower functioning, but with the higher functioning as well.
yeah, I would agree.
Unfortunately, that would put me in with them, which I don't like, because I don't want to be anything like them.
Well, it's a big world of autism. As I said, it's a vocal minority of people with mild impairments who are
Yeah, but
really seeking
they
to.
think they're the majority.
Mm-hmm.
They there's your arrows in your quiver again. One of their arrows is we're the majority, and you have to listen to us.
Yeah, but that's okay. But that's an argument for separating out, right? I can't say they're the majority or not. If you look at what the CDC numbers suggest,
Then
then
I
the
don't see that.
majority of people with autism have borderline intellectual disability or full-on intellectual disability, right?
Right.
They are not the high functioning, if you believe the CDC numbers, which are 8-year-olds. So I don't know. We're going to run out of time, and I think we're going to play a guitar duet. We're going to really annoy our audience.
Oh, do you want to, I have mine right over here.
Yeah, yeah. But what advice do you have for parents, who are facing this, these insane
My
attacks online, who are
advice from a
told they
guy
don't love
who,
their kids, who are told, their
right.
kids aren't flourishing because they're bad parents,
I do have advice. Okay, this advice comes from a guy who just drew a blank on ableism a little bit ago, and forgive me for that, guys. But I do have some advice, and if my advice is, if you are one of these parents, if you are one of these parents who are being told that you don't love your kids, if you're one of these parents who are being told the best thing you can do is listen to the actually autistic, if you're being one of these parents who's being told that the majority of autistic people think this or feel that, if you're being attacked for the puzzle piece, I wish we could have talked about the puzzle piece a little
okay,
bit.
we have a few minutes, so
Really,
let's talk
do
about
we?
the
Can we
puzzle
talk
piece.
about the puzzle piece?
Let's.
I was a part of that. I was a part of creating a puzzle piece. It was me and 14 others. I'm kind of a co-creator of that. And I understand that there are people who don't like it, and I'm okay with that because all of us are different, and all of us perceive things in different ways. We all have our likes and dislikes, and a puzzle piece is going to appeal to some and not to others. And I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is those people who are accusing me and 14 other good people who made sacrifices for the autism community, accusing us of creating an international hate symbol, because that is not what happened.
It's insane. It's
It's
an
insane.
insane accusation.
It is, and
Yeah.
they based that on the previous symbol, the one from '63, the crying child from the UK. You've seen it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we were aware of that going into this, and it's really kind of the opposite of what they said. We were aware of that. We kind of wanted to turn that on its ear, because when we got to the symbol, it was 99, which was some years after 63. And by that time, we knew a little more about what autism was and how it worked. And there was no longer that feeling of hopelessness about it. And we kind of wanted to get rid of that. And so we took the crying child out of the puzzle piece, and we kind of changed it to this multicolored interlocking puzzle pieces. And it's not a symbol of hate. It's a symbol of hope and a symbol of respect. The puzzle pieces themselves, represent, yes, there is a puzzle to this thing, and we're not saying, never were saying that any group of people or any one individual is a puzzle, or that they're missing pieces like we're being told. What we were saying is there's some things about this that we haven't figured out yet. And that remains true almost 25 years later.
It remains very true. I mean,
right, there's still some things we don't know.
There's nothing as puzzling, I would say, in the field of medicine as autism.
Right.
It is a puzzle. We hardly know what causes it. We hardly know how to treat it. We hardly know how to develop policy, right, to address what people need. We hardly know how to prevent it. It's a puzzle.
For all we have learned, we still don't know anything.
I agree. Very well, not anything, but very precious little.
The colors represent the diversity, the people like me and the people like Sophie and the people in between. You know, we were trying to respect the autism community enough to fit everyone in there. And the brightness of the colors is the opposite of the crying child. It represents hope. And that's what the puzzle piece is about.
People will just manufacture, right? You know, controversy. They'll manufacture, it'll draw attention to themselves. It'll, you know, kind of give them some sort of moral authority, right? By doing so, even if it's based on BS. All right, Thomas, get out your guitar. I give you
that article that I wrote for you. It's kind of, if I had known it was going to go viral, I would have written it differently. It's kind of become a part of the argument. There's like this link war. There's like this link war on social media now. Someone posts that other link, the ableist history of the autism puzzle piece. And then right underneath that, you'll always find the one that I wrote for you, the puzzle piece, what it really means. And it's like there's this little link war online between those two links.
That's
which I didn't see
I will
coming.
put that in the show notes. I'll put that in the show notes.
Oh, you mean the link?
You know what? By the way, I interrupted myself. I was asking you for advice for parents.
Yes, I do have that. I kind of interrupted myself with the puzzle piece. If you are a parent, blah, 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 all those things I said before. I guess my advice would be to understand and to realize, despite what you might be being told by those people, is you know your child better than they do, and you know your child better than anyone does. And all of that travel and all of that work I did, I have said this over and over and over again. I've said this for years. You can look it up. The one thing I have taken away from all of that, the one thing I have taken away from all of that, is that the parents do love their kids. I am absolutely convinced of that because I have seen it time and time and time again. I have seen sacrifices. Even what's her name? The one with the fire, the one that was with NCSA. That's it. That's it. I mean, good Lord. I mean, she died because she loved her son.
Absolutely. Talk about the ultimate sacrifice that Feda made.
No greater love is there than this.
None.
And you know, just that, you know, an example close to your organization is enough to prove it. If she didn't care about her kids, she wouldn't have gone back in. You know, parents do love their kids, and I have seen that. And it's rare that I've seen a parent die for their kids, but I've seen them give up their jobs, their homes, their mortgages, their marriages, their time,
everything,
their
everything
health,
they have,
their sanity, and like you said, everything they have, even in that case, their life, for their kids, just because that's how much they love them.
I know.
So
and
my advice is, don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Thomas. Appreciate those words. All right. Well, let's go out on
a musical note,
concert, on a piece that I don't know how to play. So yes, everybody, be forewarned. This one's not on my playlist, but Thomas suggested.
So do you have something on your? Do you have something on your playlist? Is there a song you've been learning?
We haven't gone over coming over. I'm happy to try this one. All right,
Oh, wait, I have to shift the microphone because
Oh yeah, shift your
this one,
microphone.
there, I probably sound a little different now.
Yes. Okay, you sound good. All right,
So,
you do start with A.
okay, are we gonna, do you have it?
Who
Do you have the
sings?
music right there?
I
Oh,
do.
do
It's
we
on my
have,
phone.
oh, do I have to, I don't want to sing. I can't really sing anymore.
Both of us are not good singers, people.
I could do a little harmonica if you like.
It might be too much. Let's go.
Are we gonna, do we dare,
Let's go.
sing to your
We're
to
gonna
your
sing.
audience?
We're gonna sing it. We're gonna sing to our audience, and they will.
Okay, I just wanted to put that
Absolutely
in there
throw
to give them a
tomatoes at
moment to
this
turn it
podcast.
off before we did.
Yeah, everyone's gonna turn this right off.
So if you're still listening, then that's at your own risk. So I'm ready now. Having said that, I'm ready.
We've been talking about guitar for some time, so
Yeah.
we have to do this. All right, start with a couple of A's.
Ready?
5, 6, 7, 8. Almost heaven. West Virginia. Blue Ridge
Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the sea,
trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like the breeze, country roads.
Sing it.
Take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. This'll be the last chord, country roads.
Okay, maybe with a little practice, we might actually sound coherent. This was like completely unrehearsed, guys. We the first time we've ever played it together.
Listen,
and it shows.
It shows, but
but it was kind of fun.
Interlude,
I don't remember you ever playing guitar on a podcast before.
No, this is the first. I've only been playing guitar for a couple months, so I'm brand new to this art form. Okay, Thomas. Well, with that incredible concert, I thank you for all of your decades of service to the autism community, and especially to those who have it more severe than you do, and for your empathy for them and for standing up for them. I really do commend you for all of that. And I wish you good health. And I know I will see you online. Where can people find you, Thomas? Like if they want to friend you on Facebook, tell them like.
Well, you can put that in the show notes as well. Put that down there.
I'll put that in the show notes. So
that would be, I tried a couple of those social media places, and it got too hard to keep up with all of them. So people told me they wanted me on Facebook, so that's where I am.
Yep.
And
okay.
It would be Facebook / Thomas A. McKean, all one word.
Great. All right. And you always post interesting things. So friend Thomas. Okay, people. Thomas, it's been lovely. And I will be seeing you online, and probably not in Ohio unless I make it out there sometime. But thank you so much.
Well, we'll do lunch if you do.
If I do.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Confidential. If you'd like to learn more, share an idea for an episode, or become a sponsor, please visit us at autismconfidential.org. The views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individual speakers. Content presented is for informational purposes only, and we do not provide any medical or legal advice.